Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today I have yet another old story from my childhood to uncover. Once again, a story that's not completed but that I started and made me wonder what the fuck was going on in my mind, and then stopped when the story got interesting. If you guys have tuned into my channel before, I posted a video last year where I read this story that I created that was originally like based off of the Hunger Games, and it was like my friends and I in like a Hunger Games universe where we have to participate in the games. But then it kind of changed into a story where one of my friend's boyfriends turned into like an evil monster that had laser eyes, and my friends and I were trying to figure out what was wrong with the boy with the laser eyes and console my friend who was crying over this guy she just met at the games who had lasers in his eyes. And we were stranded in a bus crash somewhere, and it strayed so far away from the Hunger Games it wasn't even relatively close, but that was the inspiration when I first wrote it when I was like 12 or 13 years old. By no means do you guys have to read that story if you don't want to, but I brought it up because I found another story that gave me similar vibes to that one. I don't know what it was with me writing stories where like characters based off of my friends and I were in unfortunate circumstances, but that's what I lived off of. I love writing weird stories with unfortunate circumstances, and this circumstance is certainly unfortunate. So I was perusing my email, doing a deep dive of my email, looking for any old pictures or random things that might have gotten lost in there. And I saw this PDF like document that I'd sent to myself. And I was very confused upon opening it because this is what I saw. Escaping Hell, Gilmore Chronicles Book 1. And it was like a PDF of a GoodNotes document, and I was so confused. I didn't even believe that I wrote this at first because the title and the Gilmore Chronicles part just didn't sound like something I would have wrote. I don't know. And then I started reading it and I realized it was definitely mine. It had the same character names that I've used a million times before. It had my writing style, and I knew it was mine, and I was deeply disturbed because I have no recollection of writing this at all. And the way that I describe people in stories is truly horrendous. I was brutal. I was cruel. But it was honestly kind of hilarious. So we're gonna get to reading Escaping Hell. I did just want to leave a little warning for anyone though. If you can't tell by the title, Escaping Hell, obviously the characters have a pretty hellish experience, and I did mention a gunman and the ideas of a shooter. I did proofread the story to make sure, it didn't get too dark, and obviously I probably would have been like 13 years old. It wasn't that dark. I mean, I quit the story before it even got to the exciting part. So nothing, happened. It wasn't like a gruesome, violent massacre or anything. But since I do live in the US, I wanted to leave a warning to anyone who is bothered by the subject or might be triggered. Please, listening to my stupid little story isn't worth it. Feel free to click out if the subject is too upsetting. But obviously, as I said, it doesn't get that dark. It just barely mentions it. But the synopsis for the story is much darker than the story itself. It says, on December 12, 2016, Robert Johnson, 34, broke into Gilmore High with a loaded gun and attempted to fire. Over half of the students were crowded onto 4 buses, one of which was held hostage by Robert. They were taken to his home where they were kept in only the articles of clothing they had on them in 20-degree weather. This is how they survive and escape. So, I guess, spoiler alert, they survive and escape. So that's good, I guess. So let's get into the story. Chapter 1 is from Mackenzie's POV. And Mackenzie was the character that I based off of myself. If I ever was writing a character based off of me, her name was going to be Mackenzie or Mac. I remember the day so vividly, it haunts me. It all started off normally. I was sitting with my best friends, Chloe and Braylon, at the old lunch table. It was one of the most popular lunches that day, but I didn't eat one bite. I just had a sinking feeling that something terrible was going to happen. My mac and cheese turned cold before I even considered even taking a bite. My milk tasted spoiled even though it was fresh. I'm dead at the fact that I thought mac and cheese was the most popular lunch. That was not the most popular lunch. Every time there was school mac and cheese, it kind of looked gross. Nobody else seemed worried. Chloe was jamming out to Christmas music, her bright blue earbuds placed in her ears. The music was so loud I could hear it through her earbuds. I could easily identify the song she was playing, Winter Wonderland. Braylon was texting her boyfriend, Nolan, as he was home with the flu. She'd taken a few bites of macaroni already. She was sipping at her milk, her eyes fixated on her phone. I genuinely don't know who Braylon was supposed to be. I'd never used that name before. Chloe was obviously based, at least physically, off of one of my best friends. Obviously, I took creative liberties with some of their characteristics, but at least for the look aspect, I pictured my friends as most of the characters because I always imagined them being big screen movies, and I always envisioned my friends and I playing the characters in them. Chloe had already inhaled all of her macaroni. She was devouring her crispy chicken sandwich filled with 2 packs of ketchup. As I was staring off into space, I felt a violent tap on my left shoulder. A violent tap. Bro. I jumped as the tap had startled me, as most violent taps do. I'd been on edge the whole day. I glanced over at Braylon, whose eyes were fixated on my macaroni. "Are you gonna eat that?" she asked, licking her lips. I sighed and scooted my tray into her place. She grabbed her plastic fork and began to shovel it into her mouth, bite after bite. Once again, I hate the way that I described any character in my stories. Apparently, the macaroni wasn't cold to her, and if it was, she didn't care. She was halfway done already. Shut the fuck up. If Braylon wants to enjoy her cold macaroni, let Braylon enjoy her cold macaroni. Chloe was now looking at a Snapchat story of various friends. Do you guys feel like at any given moment something could happen? I asked hesitantly. Chloe pulled her earbud out and asked me to repeat what I said. Braylon had been distracted by a new text from Nolan. I feel as if something's going to happen, I said. Chloe gazed at me, a confused look in her eye. You must be the only one, Mackie, Chloe responded, a sly smile on her face. She began putting her earbud back in her ear. She was playing Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I was about to tap her shoulder and ask if I could have a listen. Might I have a listen, please, Chloe? When I heard a loud scream, Braylon's tray nearly went flying. Chloe took the headphones out of her ears. I told you something was gonna happen, I shrieked, glancing around the lunchroom looking for anything out of the ordinary. I peered out the lunchroom door. All I saw was a few students headed outside. We were all allowed to eat lunch at the wooden tables outside, so I assumed they were going to sit out there for a bit. They all looked perfectly calm. Calm down, Mackenzie, Braylon said, slipping her phone into her pocket. Somebody probably just tripped or something. No, if someone tripped or dropped something, the whole cafeteria would be filled with, like, applause and clapping. Did that ever happen? Is that just, like, a universal school experience? Like, if someone drops something, everyone just claps? I nodded, starting to pack up my things. I put my phone into my bag's front pocket. I zipped it up, both sides of the zipper meeting in the middle of the pouch. See, I always had a habit of putting details where details did not need to be. Why the fuck do I care how my backpack is zipped up? Chloe was listening to music while texting a boy named Jace, a boy I didn't like. He was quite an asshole, but I tried to ignore it, picking up my tray to go dump it before the bell. Chloe was based off of one of my friends, and she was dating this guy who was terrible. So now we can acknowledge the red flags and trash talk him, but back then we could not, and I desperately needed to vent about Chloe's boyfriend. And so I did that by creating characters and stories that were terrible people without directly, calling him out directly. As I was walking, I looked at the door and Ava Lancaster was heading outside. She was one of those students who thought she was popular, that everybody loved. She thought. Ava often went outside. There was a boy out there who she insisted had a major crush on her, but I didn't believe that for a second. I gave her a friendly wave, the wave in which you just lift a few fingers sweetly. I considered Ava my friend sometimes, but truthfully, she could be a real bitch. The kind of girl who would lie to get exactly what she wanted. And the worst part was, everybody always believed her. She thought she was a real boy toy too, the way she threw herself at them. Okay, we don't need the shaming. If Ava likes boys, that's okay. But I'm also trying to remember we were probably literally like 13, so maybe she can relax just a little bit. I'll admit, she was pretty. She had naturally curly dark brown hair that fell a little past her shoulders, big lips that often made it look like she was pouting. She usually had light pink lipstick on, covered by a shimmery coat of lip gloss. Her skin was a little tan, freckless, zitless. She had a petite build. She was maybe 5 feet tall. She was fairly thin. She made me feel a little insecure as I was chubby with freckled cheeks, acne, frizzy black hair, and glasses, hiding my brown eyes. I started walking back to the table, noticing Chloe with her earbuds back in. 2 minutes left for lunch. The sinking feeling in my chest was starting to grow weak. It must have been nothing, I told myself. I was regretting my decision of not eating, but it was too late now. I began scouring my backpack for any snacks. Maybe a granola bar or a smashed cheese stick. I love the fact that I thought like a cheese stick might just happen to be at the bottom of my bag. At the end of 8th grade, my friend and I were hanging out on the last day of school. We were kind of like going in my backpack because we had to like return some of the school stuff, like the books and stuff. And there was a smashed up cheese stick at the bottom of my bag. It was old. It was disgusting. I still remember it. And like we were so disgusted in finding it in my bag that we took it and like we just threw it into this big dumpster at the park. Like we were so nauseated by this fucking cheese stick in the bottom of my bag. I found a couple broken pencils in my bag as well as a destroyed library book I'd borrowed 4 weeks ago. I'd have to remember to turn that in after 6th period. My 6th period class was English with Miss Gonzalez, my favorite teacher. One of the teachers who always helped me, would tell me she was proud. One of the teachers who truly made me happy. Ava was in my English class, to my dismay. She always cheated off me too. Miss Gonzalez always assigned us as partners because she thought Ava and I were great friends. Ava would text her boyfriends and girl friends, completely ignoring whatever we'd do. I'd never told the teacher. I'd made that one of my goals before my junior year ended. There's no way I actually wrote this when I was a junior. I sincerely hope. Mac. Earth to Mac. Chloe was shaking my shoulders abruptly. God, what is it, Chloe? I shouted. We got 1 minute, bitch, Chloe said jokingly. Oh, shut up, Chloe, I responded, a fake mean tone in my voice. Nothing like Ava, who was dead serious when she called me a bitch. Maybe she was right, but she'd always be a bigger bitch to me. I can't tell if I meant like she'd always be a bigger bitch to me or like she'd always be a bigger bitch to me. You guys are seriously gonna get in trouble, Braylon said, a frown on her face, with all that cussing you do. Sorry, Peach, I responded, enunciating the peach so she knew for certain I hadn't cursed that time. Thank you, Braylon smiled, throwing her backpack over her shoulder. We were just about to leave the lunchroom when we heard the sound of glass shattering. Chapter 2, Braylon's POV. What was that? I asked my friends anxiously, reaching into my pocket for my phone. I was always a bit paranoid. I assumed maybe there was a storm that shattered the window. Maybe somebody threw something out the window. Chloe responded, a small smile on her face. Remember what happened last year, Mac? Mackenzie nodded. Last year I was a sophomore. Mackenzie and Chloe were juniors. There were 2 students innocently tossing a baseball back and forth. I still remember their names, Patrick and Dominic. They were friends of Nolan. They were juniors last year. Patrick had thrown the baseball too hard. It struck the glass front door harshly and shattered a hole in it. They got suspended and decided to attend a different school instead. Maybe some kids threw a ball. I pulled my phone to text Nolan, telling that some kid damaged the door again, but there was a drift of cold air rushing into the room. Ring! The bell dismissing us to 6th period had rang. Everybody stood up, ready to head to class. I had chemistry, which I really did enjoy. We were going to be working on a lab today, but Miss Stevenson, the teacher, didn't tell us what. "Bye, Peach," Mackenzie said to me as we started to walk. She reached out her hand to pat my head, but I slapped her hand away. I hated when people touched my hair. It took me hours to perfect it. "Feisty," Mackenzie said, a smile on her face. She then joined Chloe, where they were strolling to class. We were startled when the principal came into the lunchroom screaming. I couldn't make out what he was saying, but it didn't seem good. It didn't help that all the students were loud as could be, worried something was wrong. "Everybody listen!" he finally yelled at the top of his lungs. I put my phone back into my pocket. I did not want to anger Mr. Greenlee anymore. "I want you all to remain calm. We need to evacuate the school." Of course, nobody remained calm. "There's an armed man on the perimeter. The bus drivers are pulling up some buses. We're just going to get a little ways away to be safe." He started saying more crap about how we needed to leave calmly, but people started jumping up, shoving their way to try and get on the buses first. We all knew very well there was a limited number of buses, and we were not normal bus riders in the morning and after school. "God, I knew something was going to happen," Mackenzie yelled, her eyes filled with tears. The three of us started making our way into the crowd of students leaving. We'd almost made it to the door when I heard something hit the floor. "Shit!" I called out. My phone had fallen. It was already being trampled by students leaving. I wanted to grab it, to tell Nolan what was going on. But we were being forced outside. Only one bus was occupied so far, and Mr. Greenlee was starting to tell us what to do. As many people in one bus as possible. We raced across the cement together, seeing Ava in the window on the second bus that was parked in front of our school. Of course Ava was one of the first ones on, I thought. Mackenzie, Chloe, and I tried to file onto the bus. There was only half a seat left. It was Ava's. She'd had her backpack next to her, sitting calmly on the bus. The rest of the seats were filled with the boys and students who made it out first. "Ava!" Chloe called. "Hi, guys," she said sweetly. I nearly flipped her off, I was so angry, but Chloe calmly picked up her backpack and set it down. Ava whined, but Chloe told me to sit down and she'd sit on my lap as she was lighter. Mackenzie was whispering curse words under her breath, sitting down on the space in between the seats next to us. The bus was jam-packed with kids. We almost didn't hear the bus door whoosh shut as we started charging through the parking lot. We looked at the driver to try and see who he was. He was middle-aged. We couldn't tell his eye color, but he had light sandy brown hair and a light skin tone. He was stick-thin, with a beard and a mustache the same color as his hair, but with tiny strands of white. I kept my eyes peeled for anyone we were really friends with, mostly popular girls and boys. Ava was staring out the window, a panicked look in her eye. My eye spotted some dark reddish hair. My pal Kendra! She had half of her hair shaved off, the rest was short and swooped to the left. I loved Kendra. She had a unique style and personality. I could hear her talking a little bit, but I couldn't tell who she was speaking. "Kendra!" I called. "Kenny!" Finally, she turned around, saw me, and gave a little wave. She couldn't move to the back of the bus as it was too full. I heard her turn to ask the driver and ask him who he was. He wasn't my driver. "Robert," he responded. An intimidating grin filled his lips. First of all, we're in a state of emergency. Why am I trying to socialize with Kendra? I'm like, "Kenny, you're on this bus too? The bus that's getting us away from an emergency that's going on? Oh my god, what are the odds? Hey, bestie." Why was this a social call? "Where are we going?" a random student asked. "My house." With that, Robert cackled. "This is not good," Chloe said. "Really?" Ava asked, a nasty, sarcastic tone of voice. "Oh, shut up, Ava," Chloe responded sassily. Ava pouted, glaring out the window. This was gonna be a long ride. Somehow I feel like the beef between Chloe and Ava is not the most pressing issue at hand. Maybe it's going to be a long ride because you're captured. Have a little sense of urgency. Please, Mackie. Chapter 3. Nolan's POV. My girlfriend had stopped responding to my texts. It was only 1 o'clock in the afternoon and she always texted me during 6th period. The worst part was she'd sent me a text saying how some student broke the glass on the door. I'd asked her who, and then she stopped responding. I sent her about 5 texts asking her where she was. LOL, who broke the glass? Bray Bray, you there? Babe, you're scaring me. Please respond. I miss you. Babe. This is what happens when you've only dated terrible guys and you're trying to write a man. I'd assume she got distracted by her friends. They tend to distract her from her phone at times. Stupid friends. I didn't mind it, but it always scared me how she just randomly stopped texting me in the middle of a juicy conversation. I assumed she'd text back in a few minutes saying, "Sorry babe, I was with Chloe and Mackenzie," but she never did. After about 10 minutes of holding my phone, waiting patiently, my head started spinning and my eyelids grew heavy. I closed my eyes and fell off into a dream. When I came to, my mom was in my room checking up on me. "What time is it?" I asked weakly. "It's 4 o'clock, she said, a smile on her face. My heart nearly skipped a beat. Braylon was sure to have responded now. Right? As I picked up my phone, the screen was blank. I typed in the passcode to see if maybe the text didn't show up, but that wasn't the case. Frustrated, I flipped on my television to the news channel. It was cold outside, nearly 20 degrees. I was glad I wasn't outside in that, but I missed Braylon and I hated being sick. They were telling some story about a dog and a kid, the typical happy story. It was cute, but I was worried about Braylon. And guess what? That is where the story concluded. No one never found out what happened to Braylon. We never found out what happened to Braylon. We never found out how they plotted their escape, and quite frankly, I don't think that they were too eager to escape. They seemed to just be enjoying the bus ride. At least it got them out of 6th period, I suppose. So that is going to be all for this story. I think this one is really funny to me because it's really telling of like my school experience and like how I viewed certain people in my life at the time, and just stupid little things like that, and like how I interacted with people and like how I thought a boyfriend would act, like being super upset that his girlfriend wasn't texting him in the middle of class. But that is going to be all for this story, and I'll see you guys in my next video.